that's all about, blockchain. We can talk about it, or we can talk about, money, which is why we connected. I think through IC, and also over tweets. And you've also written your blog, right, about money and what it is, and you've been studying money for a long period of time, like how it transforms our life, because money is practically everything that we are working for, apart from motivation and satisfaction, etc. But let's not kid ourselves. 90% of the population work for money. They want to earn a daily wage or something to provide for their family, because everything needs money, right? So taking that into account, I ask you this question, like, what is money according to you? And then we can play around some concepts related to money and how it changes our life.
Sure. So I think in its simplest form, all money is data. And I'm going to explain that. But so what I started looking at is I started looking at why money was created, right? What is the purpose of money? Why does it even exist? And so, starting out, it was really easy to trade. Right. Like, okay, well, I went hunting and I've got this meat. And I'm going to trade you this extra meat that I have for, let's say, some crops you grew. And that's great, right? As long as you need those crops right now, and I need the meat right now. And that all works out great. But what happens, like, okay, well, I've got meat right now, but I don't really need vegetables right now. So in that case, like, you're kind of screwed if you need meat. So what can we do? And that's kind of where money came in, right? It's kind of this intermediary. So it actually stores the value of something in time, right? And so let's take a look at how that would be with meat. So if I was going to sell meat, like, let's say, I went out hunting, I killed this animal, I butchered the animal, I got all this meat. I want to sell that now, right? Because if I wait a week, that meat's going to be bad. It's not going to do any good. So I need to maximize the value that I can get for that. So I'm going to sell that now, because every day going forward, that meat is losing value. Another example, it's depreciation, right? So money is a safeguard against depreciation. And physical goods depreciate over time. Like, you drive a new car off the lot, it loses 20% of its value. That's the idea of depreciation. It's kind of a drastic example, but that's what it is. But then the internet, computers were invented and the internet, and that actually created this interesting phenomenon, because no longer did you have physical goods that were depreciating over time. Now you had information, which actually appreciates over time. So, if you have information, the more information you add to that, the more valuable it's going to be. And so what happened with that is companies started realizing, like, wait, we start collecting data, we can use computers to analyze that data, and it's going to tell us what we should do to make our businesses as profitable as possible. And so the people with data were able to start making money at a much more rapid pace, which is why all of a sudden you see this, like, I know in the US specifically, you see this huge explosion in the wage gap around 1960. And so my theory there is that the invention of the computer all of a sudden made it super easy for those with money to be able to make money way faster than they were able to previously. And so, starting off, computers were prohibitively expensive, right? So only the people with the most money were using computers to make money. Now, what's happening is that's becoming more democratized. Now, like, we've got an amazing amount of computing power in our hands with our cell phones.
Yeah.
And so I think what we're going to see is this huge shift into the value of content creation, because that's one thing that everybody can do, right? If you have an internet connection, like, you can create content online. And so right now, I think what we're seeing is a lot of companies are taking advantage of that fact. Facebook is a terrible example of that. They will mine your data and sell it to the highest bidder, and you get no cut of that.
Yeah.
So it's my prediction in the future that what we're going to see is that companies are going to start having to pay you for your data if they're going to use it. Because otherwise, what's going to happen, I think there's going to be this like the economy would just collapse otherwise. Like, because right now you can't make enough money kind of with kind of the older, more traditional forms of employment. Because more and more technology is coming in and crowding out these jobs. So I think the natural evolution is that people are going to be primarily content creators. I think at some point there's going to be no more like crap jobs that you work, because that's all going to be automated. Why not automate the jobs that nobody wants to do? Like that seems to be the ideal way to go. And there's a lot of argument. Oh, you can't eliminate those jobs because people just won't work. And I think that I think really the future is that people are just going to be content creators, and that's going to be the primary source of income, because it's going to be so much more valuable than anything they can like physically labor at.
So what you're essentially saying, and I think it's a cool idea, that we have this information right now, right? We have everything at our disposal. Like, we are talking, we're sharing information, and someone out there has something to talk about, right? Whether that's music, whether that's cryptocurrency, whether that's banking, all sorts of things. And now what you're essentially saying is the information is becoming a commodity, and which is a very general commodity. uh, it can have value also, and that's what can, if everyone starts having information, it can have a universal application of money, which is which is which is like general in nature, and you can identify it, etc. So that is what I think essentially can be a game changer. Also I feel that money as a concept has changed a lot of face over the course of time. Like you said, in the start there was barter, then it came with fiat, and now then it came with commodities, then gold, and now with fiat, and now with internet money, and now potentially becoming information. I mean, if you see cryptos are nothing but information, right? And I think that application has already been done, information. The next wave is, I think, content, which can make a change. But also I feel that people confuse this term of money with currency. uh, so money, as you said, is is divisible, has value in it, can it's non-perishable, protects you from depreciation, etc. And it has value, it has underlying value. So if you say money, which was around 1944, which was based on gold standards, it had value because it was backed by gold. But with the invention of fiat currency, there is nothing out there. So what central banks do is they just pump in or print in money, and they just send it out, which is scary, because how can you create money from thin air? Because and I think if central banks create more money, it's gonna destroy your country. That's what happened with Germany back in World War II. That's what happened with in 2008 financial crisis. So yeah, I mean, you can do quantitative easing, which is like creating assets and liabilities, but what you're doing is essentially creating Ponzi money, or a Ponzi scheme, through which you are just borrowing and just printing out money. Because printing money also has a cost to it, right? Uh, you can't just create money out of thin air. Otherwise, anyone can do it, right? It has a cost, which is like government has to put out certain things to do, or certain priorities to put. Uh, Otherwise, it doesn't work. Also the other point which I was talking is about data. So like you said, Facebook, etc., has a lot of data about ourselves, and they are commercializing on data, right? Which is which is a new business model for Facebook and Twitter and all the social media apps out there, is they get a lot of data about ourselves, what we eat, who are our friends, what is our social circle, etc. So that is a scary part, right? And I think there are certain initiatives like GDPR in UK. I'm going to go with the financial data first, then I'm going to talk about the social or other data, personal data. But with the involvement of UK government to form GDPR, what happened was that financial data was controlled by banks for a long period of time, right? But essentially, in regulation and in law, it tells that you as a customer are the owner. Bank is just the custodian of that data, which means that you should be able to control that data and share that data with whomever and howsoever format you want to do it. That there should be no restriction from the bank to not give you that part of the data, right? And that's where GDPR or open banking empowers customers to build something off of their data to make their lives easier. So it is essentially commoditizing that data. It doesn't have a lot of commercial value, as you say, but it has like potential value uh, in terms of, let's say, I have like bad financials, and I want to get like financial loan from someone. I have to share that data, right? But also I can get advice from someone. Okay, this is my bad financial, how can you improve it, or how can I improve it, what are the parameters for it? That's where open banking is helping. In UK, it has massively spread. I mean, not just in UK but in Europe, whole of Europe. Open banking is a very good concept. 2016 it was started, and now it's every bank is adopting it. In US, I think companies like Plaid, I think we talked about it, which are doing the same thing, that they are giving you access to the data, to the various sources of data, and you can make a decision on top of it, creating a unified platform for it. um, Also, in India, especially now, there is this concept of account aggregator, which also allows you to do the same thing, to collect all of your financial data on one platform, so that you can then transfer it to some other party or third party, let's say a lender or a financial service provider or a wealth manager who wants to check your data, right? Because before it was like going to a bank and getting that data, but now with a click of a button you can just share the data with whomsoever you want to do. Um, also there is this other concept called DEPA, which is digital, I think, data enabled. I'm forgetting the name. So what it does in India, what you're saying, that Facebook, WhatsApp, etc., has a lot of data about ourselves. And again, going back to the financial concept, that we are the owners of the data, not the Facebook, not the Twitter, right? It's our data, right? And we should know how it's used. We should know how we can use it, and whether we want to delete it, it should be deleted. Facebook can't hold it, right? It's our data. So this is a regulation that is coming in picture right now. It's in the bill process. So when it comes, the essential thought process is basically, how can I control my data and not give access to anyone? So it's more about privacy of the data. It's more about how uh, I think you get the idea. It's a general concept where you should be the owner of the data, not the companies. And companies can't commoditize if they want to. What you were saying about the giving value to the content. If they want to use it, they should pay you because it's your data, right? So I think that is a concept that's soon gonna come in India, across the globe, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. Yeah, and that's interesting. I wasn't familiar with that bill. I'm going to have to do some investigation into that. But yeah, one thing I did want to revisit though is where you were talking about the idea that you can't just print as much money as you want, right? And I think that we're actually going to see that in certain cases you can. I'm not going to say in every case, because the problem with that is a lot of global currencies are all based kind of on the dollar, right? The US dollar.
Yeah.
Um, and so because of that fact, like if you've got a currency that is like based on the dollar, you can't do much with it because that'll throw that value out of whack. Um, but I do believe that you can print off as many dollars as you want, and the U.S. government is fantastic at doing that because they just make up money whenever they want to. And the whole thing is it's all arguing about exactly what money we should create. But I'm not sure if you're familiar with the idea of modern monetary theory. There's a professor by the name of Stephanie Kelton who wrote a book on it. And yeah, the idea is that really, I think at this point, um, inflation isn't nearly the problem that it used to be. And I think you were spot on with Germany, like in World War II. But again, that kind of comes right before computers really started to hit the mainstream, right? So it's my complete belief that the US government can print off as much money as they want and flood the world economy with it, because what's going to happen is due to the how the internet can be used for people to make money, the economy will expand to accommodate however many dollars are in circulation. Um, so I think a lot of the idea of what Bitcoin is, um, to me, it's interesting because, like, on one hand, I'm like, okay, I want to buy a bunch of Bitcoin as kind of an investment, right? And I'm thinking that that's going to go up in value because there's only going to be a total of 21 million Bitcoin in existence, and because there's only a finite number, the value of that is going to inevitably go up and up. But I also am of the opinion that yeah, that's one way to kind of like it's placing a bet, and it's a bet that's probably going to win. Um, but to me, it's like I would rather create that value elsewhere. Like I'm not as worried about investing in Bitcoin because I'd much rather focus my time and energy and even money on my content creation, because I firmly believe that much the way Bitcoin is going to skyrocket in value, my content is going to skyrocket in value. And I think the thing with my content is that for every blog I write, right, I get a little bit better at blogging. Our audience kind of goes up and up and up, and so as a content creator, the value of my content goes up as I get better at it. And that's something I can more accurately control, right? Like that's not something that's going to just randomly take a giant dip in value. It's something that, I'm investing my time and energy in. So I'm really intrigued to see how Bitcoin does, because I think it's going to end up skyrocketing. But I also don't think that it's absolutely necessary in the way that some people are saying it is, because it's this guard against this crazy inflation. And I don't think inflation is going to be nearly the issue that a lot of economists are making it out to be.
No, and I think Bitcoin was essentially built for. I mean, it was taken. I don't know how to put it. It was taken inspiration from the financial system only, right? And it was taken inspiration by the monetary policy, or how money is actually built. So if you see Bitcoin on its fundamental, it is finite in nature. It is easily divisible. It is generally acceptable. It has all the qualities which money has, or which fiat currencies has, and it is also creating its own economy on top of it. Now there is other things like, okay, it's an asset. It's not asset. It wasn't meant for creating an asset, but due to its finite nature and how economics work, demand and supply, the value of that currency is growing. Just as dollar has 74, dollar has value to other currencies. That's how Bitcoin is having value to US dollars. But it is not meant for trading. It is actually meant for rewarding people for doing their work. which is on Bitcoin network. If you work, they don't want to pay you through US dollar or currency, but they created this token, which is Bitcoin, and that's how you get paid, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, now it's becoming a phenomenon when it's a asset, or it's a, it's something where you can invest. I think I started, but I started tracking cryptos in 2016 when I was like, in my college years. So I got pretty intrigued by Bitcoin, but as I dipped into it, it wasn't something that you can create an asset on, because Bitcoin is so volatile that now it's at 25,000 or 30,000, but at one point it was at zero, and it can go again at zero and come back up. It just depends upon the pump and dump, or how many people hold the particular Bitcoin, which you never know, right? Or if you know, you can't really tell, okay, when is the right time to sell or when is the right time to buy, because you never know. Like some economists are saying that Bitcoin can go up to $100,000. Some are saying that it is worthless or pointless. You never know, right? Whom to listen, what is the value. It's like trading your currency. You can't trade your currency, right? It's like you can't say that, okay, dollar will become, $1 will become $100,000 in a span of 5 years, 10 years. It just can't happen. And I think money is not meant for that. Money is for rewarding for certain transactions. Like you and I do business, we are rewarding each other with money, right? It's not that I give you a dollar, wait for 100 years, that's gonna become $100,000. No. So yeah, I see there is a practical implication, but not a monetary or asset implication there. Like Bitcoin can never be a asset, because it just doesn't make sense. I mean, if you see Elon Musk, which is I'm a big fan. So he just bought $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. I don't know what he will do with it. I think it makes a strategy, like he has spare money at his disposal. Maybe just that he bought it, and he knows the influence he can have, so it's gonna drive crazy the value of Bitcoin. And I think that's what happening in the crypto, and everyone's getting excited. Now I think the fair implication is that, or the practical implication, which I think is turning the currencies into a crypto. So if you can do that and create a fully digital currency, which I think in India central bank is doing, is taking steps. The RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, it's like thinking of creating a digital currency, which can replicate the fiat currency or the national currency. uh, and I think Bitcoin has proved that it can work. So maybe people will take inspiration from it and think about doing it.
Yeah, I think that's really going to be interesting to see. It would be my guess that India is probably way more likely to pull it off than, like, let's say the U.S., because I feel like there's going to eventually be an attempt for, like, kind of that digital U.S. dollar, and my prediction is that it's going to be absolutely terribly implemented. I don't think that the people in charge of the country are going to do it well. Like, I think it could be done, and I see a lot of potential there. But in the end, I don't think the U.S. dollar is going to be the one that gets digitized, and I think there'll be an attempt, and I think it'll flop. And I'd love to be wrong with that, but I've
No,
seen
but
our government in action. As somebody on Twitter pointed out the other day, they're like, "Wow, I really thought that the government would actually try to understand Bitcoin before legislating it." And the problem is, yeah, they don't.
they don't.
Um, they're just going to try to make rules. And actually, I'm actually, the more I've researched, and the more I see the people kind of in charge, I'm actually constantly amazed at how little information our representatives tend to require before making decisions on things. It's amazing how, like, poorly informed they are. And you'll see interviews with some of these government leaders, and you're just like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, why? Like, how are you in office right now?
I
So
mean, it's also because I think in US the regulation structure is very disfragmented or decentralized for that matter. Like every state will have their own legislation, and then there is the central authority which is making rules, which is like White House. But then you have senators at every other area, and they are making their own rules. This is like conflicting in nature, and they just don't know. But the funny thing that I see, that if you're saying that US is making an attempt to do it, they're gonna run back to technology people because they don't know about technology, right? And eventually they're gonna end up with Facebook, Twitter, and they're gonna call them up only, right? And if that's gonna happen, if Facebook is involved in some way, that's scary. That's very scary because you never know how Facebook's gonna use that particular and leverage themselves, because Facebook is made for profit, right? And I think Apple, for that matter, is very cool. Twitter is also cool, but Facebook, I don't trust Facebook. I don't trust Mark. Yeah.
yeah,
It
Facebook
has made an attempt.
chose the dark side.
It has made an attempt with Libra, right? So Libra
Right.
was something that Mark wanted to do, but then US, governor said, "Oh no, you can't do it." Is I think one thing that Indian governors or government has done very cool, that they have actually banned everything. They've banned every crypto. You can't involve or trade on crypto in India, right? They have just lifted it, but they are planning to again ban it off, because if you don't have anything, you have to generally accept my crypto, which is
Right.
the central government's currency. Yeah. They're not
Right.
even taking the risk of involving third parties to do that.
Which kind of defeats the purpose of like a decentralized currency, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that turns out. I'm curious to see if that's something that actually ends up being enforceable, or if it's going to be something that like they have to drop the regulations just because people are going to ignore them. And based on kind of what I've seen, my prediction leans toward that people are just going to ignore the restrictions and kind of do what they want. And maybe that's not the case in India. Maybe that's more of a